Once again, a very good morning to all of you. Hope the weather is fine in your areas. All right. Hope you all are okay. And hope you all are safe at home too, because it's something that we have to be very concerned about these days with the ongoing climatic changes as well as, the pandemic situation. Right. So we are in the somewhere around towards 25% done in the chapter number 4. So today let's have a look at what we are going to say. But first, let me refresh what we have been talking so far, right? So in chapter number 4, in lesson 4, you have learned, you have got an introduction to the SLEP factors, right? Which you are very much thorough about, which you have learned in several different places, which we have revised when we were learning MIS as well. So I don't need to go into extent about what this is, but also please know that there are different versions of this. Some call it the pest analysis, some call it the SLEP analysis, some call it the pestle analysis. They also include the environmental factors and legal factors, technological factors, economic factors, social factors. There are many additions to this framework, but more or less the factors or the variables that we talk about in the framework are the same. For instance, here we talk about legal and ethical factors as one, we have shown as one, but in those pestle framework, what we do is we break it down by adding a new variant of environmental aspect as well, right? So likewise, have in mind that there are different versions to it as well. So you have got an introduction on how these challenges posed by the macro environment are important for business, how important it is for businesses to, be aware of whatever the changes that are going on around them, right? And we have stressed the importance of scanning the environment around a business organization, right? Then I think we have stopped last day in this slide. You have got perhaps, I hope, an introduction to these different waves and the waves of change and how they affect the performance of businesses. Am I right? Have you discussed this diagram already? Yes or no? Yes or no? Right. We have got an introduction and also an explanation about this diagram. Right, great. So from today onwards, then let's start our discussion from this point onwards, right? Now, you have learned that there are different environmental factors, like I mentioned earlier, which affect the business organization in various ways and in various scales, right? So first, we have to understand, as the first point describes as well, organizations that either do not monitor these environmental factors or those that do not respond to them adequately will not remain competitive and may fail. So that is obvious, right? We have been repetitively discussing about this. If an organization is not able to adequately devise response strategies to counteract to these changes happening in the environment, then those organizations may fail, as we have been observing throughout long way back in history, even happening right now. If your business organization is something that does not have an idea about what's going on around you, if you try to preserve your traditional business model without getting a clear picture about the changes in consumers' behavior, about what is happening to the supply and demand, what is happening in the political arena of the country, what is happening in the economy of the country. If a business organization is not aware of these things, and even if they are aware, if they are not ready to do something about it, then there's a heavy threat posed at that business, and there's a possibility that those organizations may fail at some point in the run, right? For example, now many businesses, last day when we were discussing, I remember I told you when we were discussing the chapter number 1, uh, that how this COVID-19 has created new opportunities and threats for businesses, right? How many businesses had to shift to online mode. Businesses who had not thought of doing businesses online had to go online, had to be virtual in order to survive, right? So likewise, your business organization should be ready to take on these changes happening in the environment, right? Then the second point, the process of monitoring the environment continuously is usually referred to as environmental scanning. So there's a terminology as environmental scanning that is used to refer to a process of monitoring the environment continuously, right? Not just now and then, but if your organization is doing it continuously, right? You call it environmental scanning. Then thirdly, monitoring the environment often occurs as an ad hoc process in which many employees and managers will monitor the environment and will perhaps respond appropriately. Now, when it comes to this monitoring of the environment, there are some organizations who do it as a habit. They habitually do it. They very systematically do it, right? Systematic monitoring of the environment. But there are also organizations who monitor the environment in an ad hoc basis. So what do you mean by ad hoc? මොකක්ද මේ ad hoc monitoring කියලා කියන්නේ? එහෙම නැත්නම් ad hoc process එකක් කියලා මොකක්ද අපි කොහොමද හඳුන්වන්නේ? මොකක්ද ඒකේ අදහස? ad hoc කියන term එක. What do you mean by ad hoc? Any idea? There is systematic, there is ad hoc. What do you mean by ad hoc? මොකක්ද ad hoc කියන වචනේ තේරුම? Yes? Yes, someone tell me. Nobody knows what ad hoc is. Have you had your breakfast, everyone? Or are you in the process of having breakfast? Or are your devices on and you are having breakfast somewhere else? All right, we got one response. Right. So Rumeshi says, without any systematic procedure. Yes, Rumeshi, that's a good answer. So what happens in ad hoc is you do something as and when the requirement arises, right? අපිට අවශ්‍යතාවයක් ආවම අපි යම් දෙයක් කරනවා නම් ඒක ad hoc activity එකක්, ad hoc process එකක් කියලා අපි කියනවා. As and when the requirement arises, you do something, but it's not something which is systematically happening, right? අපි ක්‍රමානුකූලව නැත්නම් ක්‍රමවත්ව අපි කරන දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. අපිට යම් කිසි අවශ්‍යතාවයක් හදිසියෙ ඇති වුණාම අපි කරන දෙයක්, right? So some organizations do this environmental scanning as an ad hoc process. What happens there? For example, when an organization is in the requirement to initiate a special project, or when they need to change a strategy, when they need to introduce a new strategy, right? Likewise, when such requirements arise, organizations scan the environment, or they try to monitor environment and try to gain an idea about what's happening around them. So that's ad hoc. It's not systematic, right? So what's the issue in this ad hoc process, as you think? So maybe an organization, they feel like they want to introduce a new product to the market, for example, let's think, right? And when this need arises, they try to conduct customer surveys, right? They try to conduct certain market surveys, and they try to gain an idea about what's the customer behavior like, what's the demand behaving like, right? But what are the competitors doing? What's the nature of the industry? What's the nature of the supply chain partners that are operating? So likewise, they try to gain a picture of it when they have this requirement to introduce a new product. So that is ad hoc process of monitoring the environment. So what's the issue in this process? Is it good or is it bad? Or what do you think is the best way? So we have one answer. It is a proactive approach, not reactive. What is proactive? What approach do you think is proactive, and what do you think is reactive? Yes, when you do something as in ad hoc basis, is it proactive or is it reactive? What's your take on that? Yeah. When we monitor the environment on an ad hoc basis, is it proactive or is it reactive? If I simplify it in this way, if we do this process as and when a requirement arises, as we have one more answer. Yeah, it's very much reactive, right? I mean, we are not trying to do it in a systematic way. We are not trying to foresee what will happen. We are not trying to initiate, these environmental scannings before something happens. We do it as and when a requirement arises. As a reaction to that requirement, we do that, right? So what's the issue here? The issue is now, if there is no proper mechanism that is systematically happening to identify these changes, right, to communicate it throughout the organization, if it does not have proper reporting structures within the organization, right, if there's no, properly established monitoring mechanism, then some changes that happen in the environment, one thing, they can be missed. And also on the other hand, if it's not properly structured within the organization, for instance, they are only detected at one point, but they are not properly communicated. That means it's not systematic, it's not proper, it's not well established, right? Then also there's an issue. Why? The changes happening in the environment are detected, correct? But they are not communicated to upper levels. This thing is happening with our customers. We observe something, but maybe it's not communicated to the senior management. What happens then? Then only maybe the frontline workers observe something, perhaps because they are the ones who constantly engage with the customers, right? Then අපි හිතමුකෝ supermarket chain එකක් උදාහරණයකට ගමු. දැන් frontline workers ලා කියන්නේ customers ලාත් එක්ක නිතරම ගැටෙන පිරිසක් නේ. නිතරම ඒගොල්ලොත් එක්ක interact වෙන පිරිසක්. ඒතර ඒගොල්ලන්ට customer behavior එක සෑහෙන්න detect වෙනවා. එයාලට තේරෙනවා කස්ටමර් ප්‍රෙෆරන්ස් එක මොකක්ද. උදාහරණයක් විදිහට අපි හිතමු සුපර් මාකට් එකක අපි කියන්නේ ප්‍රොඩක්ට් අයිල්ස් තියෙනවානේ. කැටගරිස් අයිල්ස් විදිහටනේ කැටගරයිස් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒතර දැන් ඕව හදන අයට ප්‍රොඩක්ට්ස් arrange කරන අයට සමහරට තේරෙන්න පුළුවන් කස්ටමර්ස්ලා struggle කරනවා product categories හොයාගන්න ගියාම නේ හැමතිස්සෙම ඇවිල්ලා අහනවා clear නෑ, maybe layout is not user friendly, maybe the boards which we have displayed, they are not very attractive, they are not eye-catching maybe, right? So those things, maybe the flow workers, they may be detecting them. But what happens if these are not communicated towards to senior management? They would not know that such issue is there in their organization, right? So that is why it is very important to have a systematic procedure for scanning the environment. Right? It includes not only the bigger picture. When you say scanning the environment, you think of something big, right? But it's not that. Even these tiniest things that happen, if there's a proper mechanism to capture them, then the organization is in a better position to come up with response strategies to remedy those situations or to respond to those situations, to counteract to those situations. Right? So that's why the next point says the problem with the ad hoc approach is that if there is not a reporting mechanism, right? If there is no proper, chain of communication, there's no reporting mechanism, then some major changes may not be apparent to managers. Some major changes happening in the business environment sometimes may not be apparent to managers. Therefore, information about environmental changes can arise at different points in the organization. Like I said, it might be from those kinds of sales, support personnel at a front line, physically meeting the customers. It may be from a call center, right? They may be making certain observation. It may be from your own organization's web page, it may be your own organization's Facebook page, right? It may be from your organization's suppliers, it may be from your organization's distributors. Many insights about what is happening in the environment can come from these different parties, right? ඔගලන්ගේ cashier ගෙන් වෙන්න පුළුවන් organization එකේ customer service support staff එකෙන් වෙන්න පුළුවන් distributor කෙනෙක් සමහර දේවල් කියනවා වෙන්න පුළුවන් ඔගලන් retailers ලට wholesalers ලා එක්ක ගනුදෙනු කරනවා නම් ඒගොල්ලොන්ගෙන් ඔයගලගේ logistics partners ලාගෙන් environment එක ගැන insights ඔය හැම පැත්තෙන්ම එන්න පුළුවන් organisation එකට. ඒතර organisation එකට පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ මේ හැම පැත්තෙන්ම එන insights මේවා properly scan කරන්න, මේවා monitor කරන්න, මේවා capture කරන්න, මේවා කොහොමද organisation එකට අදාළ වෙන්නේ? මේවා organisation එකට risk එකක් ගේනවද? එහෙම නැත්නම් organisation එකට threat එකක් ගේනවද? organisation එකට opportunities ගේනවද? right මේ හැම දෙයකින්ම organization එකට තියෙන අදාළත්වය මැනගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන්න ඕනේ right organization should be able to measure and capture the effect of these changes and there should be a proper communication process, a systematic process within the organization to understand these changes, right, and to evaluate how these will impact the business. It may be from the customer behavior, it may be from demand and supply changes, it may be coming from political, environment of the organization. Now, for instance, many changes can be affected because of the policy and regulations by the government, right? For instance, in the vehicle market, right? In the vehicle market, quite about a month ago, there was a buzz going on when the new governor was appointed, right? When Ajit Niwad Cabral came, there was a buzz going on that vehicles will be imported, that it will be facilitated, that they are looking into how that can be facilitated. Using dollars, those who have dollars can import vehicles. There was a buzzword going like that. එහෙම රාවයක් පැතිරුණා. So that word itself was enough to create a huge fluctuation in the vehicle prices in the market. Why was that? Because businesses were alert on what's going on around them, right? So therefore, your organization has to always be able to, scan and quickly understand what's going on, right? And to quickly respond. If your organization is slow in doing that, if your organization is not agile, like we learned the other day, right? Then your organization is at a risk. If they are not properly communicated, your organization is at a risk that you may not come up with proper response strategies, right? So last point says environmental scanning is required to evaluate different information and to respond accordingly. So that is, you understand that, right? As I explained now, as I've been explaining with several examples, how important it is for organizations to have a proper understanding and to respond accordingly by having a proper mechanism established within the organization. Right. So moving on. First, let's look at the social and legal factors. Right. So we are looking at the SLEP framework. First, coming to the first variable that we are going to focus on, social and legal factors. Now, social and legal impacts of the internet are important from an e-commerce perspective, since they govern the demand for internet services, then second, the propensity to purchase in online. So why is the impact of the internet, why is the impact made on the internet by social and legal environment important for a business, important for a e-commerce perspective? Why is it important? One thing, because these social and legal environment and the changes happening in the social and legal environments can have an impact on the nature of the demand that is there for internet services, right? Now, maybe it's the perception of the people in your community, right? Maybe it's some sort of new legal enactment, new regulation, right? New law which governs certain types of businesses, right? So these kinds of things can have an impact on the demand for how, consumers tend to engage with the internet. So if you are purely based on an internet-based platform, right, e-commerce based business, if your business is based on e-commerce, then these legal and social differences, changes can have an impact on how communities demand services from your organization, right? And also their propensity to purchase online, right? Now, for example, if there are new laws enacted on consumer privacy, right, and if there are new laws governing consumer protection, right, if these things have an impact on consumers, definitely consumers will also change the way they purchase online. For example, if consumer protection laws mention that consumers have the authority to directly request information on a Facebook page without the particular vendor delivering it through a personal message, but let's say it is mandatory for all organizations to detail out all the information regarding a particular product or service directly on the Facebook page, maybe on the advertisement, maybe on the comment section. They should be directly advertised and they should not send it as personal messages to consumers. Let's assume, right, there's no such law. I'm not saying that it's the law. Let's assume there was some sort of regulation like that. එහෙම regulation එකක් ගෙනාවා කියලා හිතමු. ඒ මොනොත් මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ? එතකොට consumers ලා එකට react කරන විදිය වෙනස් වෙනවා නේ. එතකොට ඔය වගේ දේවල් ගැන business එකක් හැමතිස්සෙම alert ඉන්න ඕනේ. Consumer protection ගැන laws වෙන්න පුළුවන් නේ. About data protection වෙන්න පුළුවන්, right? So likewise, there can be major changes. They can change the perception that people have about the internet and internet-based businesses. If it is established that by engaging in online transaction, consumer privacy can be compromised, then consumers will be reluctant to buy online, right? They will be reluctant to make a payment online. If it is established that certain organizations do not have secure payment gateways, right? Let's assume if it is made mandatory that whatever the transactions happening online should go through this particular gateway, that it is mandatory. Let's assume. So then if your organization is not facilitating that as an online business, then consumers will be reluctant to purchase online. Then there will be a reduction in demand for your organization's products and services, right? So likewise, it's very important to monitor the changes that are happening in this environment. Then factors governing consumer adoption of e-commerce service. So what factors affect consumers to adopt to e-commerce services? අපි මේ e-commerce services භාවිතා කරන්න consumers ලා පෙළඹෙන, එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒවට adopt වෙන්න, e-commerce services වලට adopt වෙන්න consumers ලා පෙළඹෙන හේතු මොනවාද? ඒ සාධක මොනවාද? Right? One is cost of access cost, right? It's one of the major factors. Why? This is certainly a barrier for those who do not or already own a home computer, a majority expenditure for many households. For example, although you want to start an online business, if your target market or if the consumers that you are going to target have barriers to access to certain devices like a computer, right? Then how are they going to access your services? But, mostly what we saw lately was that most people engage in these transactions by using a mobile phone, right? Many organizations tend to have their own mobile apps. In the current context, there is an increasing tendency for these businesses to have their own application and to promote their business through mobile versions, right? Mobile, why we say this is important is now all versions are not equally accessible via a mobile as via a desktop version, right? The website එකක් ගත්තත්, corporate website එකක් ගත්තත් ඒකේ desktop version එකයි mobile version එකේ වෙනස්කම් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. සමහර විට organization එකකට mobile version එකක් නැත්තම්, right? Mobile friendly version එකක් promote කරන්නේ නැත්තම් organization එකක්, සමහර අවස්ථාවන් වලදී users ලා uncomfortable වෙන්න පුළුවන්. It will be inconvenient for users to access the same desktop version by using a mobile phone, right? So likewise, if your organization, for example, is something which only supports desktop versions, right? If it's more convenient for users to access your services through a computer, right? A desktop version, a laptop maybe, right? If it's only accessible through computer conveniently, then if your consumers do not possess a laptop, then you are in trouble, right? Sometimes this cost of access, therefore, is a major factor in adopting e-commerce services. The other main costs are the cost of using an ISP to connect to the internet and the cost of using the media to connect, telephone or cable charges. Yes. Now, another main element of cost is, access cost is one, device cost, right? Then the other one is using an internet service provider to connect to the internet, right? ISP is an internet service provider. So the payment that you have to make to get this service, right? Cost of using an internet service provider and the connection costs, right? Now, these are also major costs in determining whether you are going to purchase online as a consumer, right? Then second one is value proposition. What do you mean by value proposition? මොකද්ද value proposition එකක් කියන්නේ? Yes. What is the meaning of a value proposition? What's your idea on that? What do you think is a value proposition? මොකද්ද value proposition එකකින් කරන්නේ? Yes. Any answers? Any ideas? What is a value proposition? A very simple question. You have learned about it when we were talking about marketing in MIS as well. What is a value proposition? No idea. But you have to give an answer now. What is a value proposition? මොකක්ද value proposition එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ? Yes. මොකක්ද value proposition එකක් කියන්නේ? What is a value proposition? Now you're accessing this lecture through using internet, right? So it's a very simple matter of searching for it if you have no idea of what a value proposition is. What is a value proposition? You have to provide an answer or else I won't proceed. Right. Someone says it is a promise or value to be delivered, communicated, and acknowledged. Okay. Right. 3 people say that. I think this was the top search result, no? But still, I appreciate that. I appreciate you sending it. It's like a promise given by an organization to customer about a product to be delivered. Yes. Now, it is, yes, it's a kind of a promise that you make to a customer, your customer. A promise regarding what? About what your product or service will deliver to the consumer, to the customer, right? So the value proposition tells about how relevant your product or service is to the customer. And the value proposition says what are the benefits that the customer will get by using your product or service. And the value proposition also communicates how different is your product or service from the rest of the competition. So if your value proposition is so strong, that itself makes your product or service stand out from the rest of the competition, and it compels the customers to move to your product, right? So this value proposition is also another important factor governing the adoption of customers to e-commerce services. Let's see how that happens. Customers need to perceive a need to be online. customers ලට තේරෙන්න ඕනේ මම මේ online මම ඉන්න ඕනේ ඇයි මොකද්ද necessity එක why is it necessary for me to go online or to constantly interact with the business using an online medium? Why? What can the internet offer that the other media cannot? In order for customers to feel like they need to be online to complete this transaction or to know about this product or service, right? Or to engage with business. Why? The need. What can, by being on internet, by being online, what is the special benefit that I get? Why can't I go to a shop and physically do it? Why can't I see this advertisement through the TV? Or why can't I just listen to the advertisement going on the radio? Why? Why is internet so important that convincing nature should be there in your value proposition, right? Examples of value propositions includes access to more supplier information and possibly lower prices. So one example could be that by engaging in the transaction online, customers get access to a wide variety of suppliers than on a physical environment, right? භෞතිකව අපි shop එකකට ගිහිල්ලා ගනුදෙනු කරනවට වඩා online environment එකකදී ඒගොල්ලන්ට suppliers ලා ගණනාවකින් තෝරලා තමන්ගේ transaction එක කරගැනීමේ හැකියාව තියෙනවා නේ. ඒතර value proposition එකේ එක highlight එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් ඒක. That could be a key highlight of your value proposition. And also internet prices may be lower than the regular prices in a physical store. Now, for example, are you aware of this? That internet prices can be significantly lower than the same product in other shops. Can you give me an example? Internet prices specifically අඩුයි කියලා convince වෙලා තියෙන තැනක් ඔයාලා කියන්න. Any idea, any experience that you have had or any thought you have to share regarding that with the class? Why do you say that there is access to wider variety of suppliers and also a vast amount of information about products and services and also lower prices? Tell me an instance. So we have one answer. Buying from eBay. Good. Yes. Now, when you're buying something from eBay, one thing you get access to not only local suppliers, but you can select from a number of suppliers in the global market, right? Suppliers that are even based outside Sri Lanka, right? A wide variety of suppliers and also a lot of information. And reduced prices. Special prices are there. If you compare the same product in a physical store, at considerably lower prices you can buy. Now in Sri Lanka, lately, they were promoting this Daras, right? Daras, manada 11/11 sale කියලා එකක් ගියා නේද? So what were they trying to promote there? That at considerably lower prices, you can buy from the Daras platform, right? So that is a part of the value proposition that they offer there. Right, that's the specialty, the benefit that the customers can get, right? So therefore customers should feel that being online to connect with this organization, being online to buy this product or service is worth it without going to other media, without visiting a store physically, not by just looking at a TV advertisement, by just looking at a mobile advertisement on your phone. You can get convinced, right? So in 2000, company advertisements started to refer to internet prices. So there, in this year 2000 and later, this special terminology called internet prices came into being, that there are special reduced prices when using the internet, right? Then the third concern governing customers to adapt to e-commerce is ease of use. භාවිතයේ තියෙන පහසුව. This includes the ease of first connecting to the internet using the ISP and then the ease of using the web once connected. First, there should be a convenience on connecting to the internet using your internet service provider. Then secondly, after you're connected, once you're connected, it should be convenient for you to use the website without any hassle, right? That also has to be there. Now, if your internet service provider, if you're having a very slow connection, right, there are connectivity issues, and if the data charges are very high, right, and even if the data charges are high, sometimes people tend to use them if there is a very good, connectivity at least, right? If there's a speed, if it's convenient. But if that convenience is not there, it's one of the very most important concerns that a customer may have when deciding whether they should adopt to e-commerce services, right? So therefore, it is also very important. So, for example, lately there was this huge issue going with Dialog, for example, right? About their convenience in using Dialog as a platform to connect to the internet, right? There was a huge debate going on. There were many hate speech going on, many negative comments going on social media, right? So likewise, ease of use is one of the prime concerns. But also on the other hand, you can think of it in this way. When you are using this connection, if you have to, let's go some time back when we had cable connection, dial-up connections, right? Now there is a high-speed connectivity, but when we had these dial-up connections, to connect to the internet itself was very stressful. It was a huge hassle. You had to dial. Excuse me, you had to always dial, you had to use your home phone to connect to the internet, right? So each time you are using the internet, nobody can use the home phone while you are on the internet. So, and vice versa. So that itself was a huge issue, right? But now it's not like that. It's very convenient to connect to the internet. There's nothing much to be done, nothing to be dialed, right? It's just a matter of if you're using Wi-Fi connection, for example, you can keep your credentials saved, your home network saved, just a matter of turning on the Wi-Fi icon on your phone, right? Very easy to connect. So this ease of use is a very important factor governing whether customers are willing to adopt to e-commerce services, right? Then security, a very important concern when using internet services, right? While this is only literally a problem for those who shop online, the perception generated by news stories may be that if you are connected to the internet, then your personal details and credit card details may not be secure. Now, when you are shopping online, if you're a person shopping online, if there are news stories going on that certain organizations have compromised the security, that their weak security is there, right? Or let's say the personal details that you use to engage in these transactions can be compromised at any point, right? If there are news stories circulating on social media, right, they can go viral instantly, just like that, right? So then there will be reluctance to use your personal credit card or debit card or to use your account information to complete a transaction online, right? If there's a threat of hackers going on, if there's a threat of a network of certain organization being compromised by hackers, you will stay away from engaging in transactions with those organizations, right? So it will probably take many years for this fear to diminish as using the internet slowly becomes established as a standard way of purchasing goods. Now, if there is such fear established, it may not just pass overnight, right? If there is such a threat going on online, for it to recover from that situation, it will take a lot of time to gain back the customer confidence that online is once again safe to engage in transactions. It will take some time, right? So the corporate reputation, if it's if the reputation is compromised due to such security issues, then your organization is at a huge risk in recovering it, right? Therefore, security is one of the most primary concerns when it comes to using e-commerce services or consumers' adoption to e-commerce services. Right now, for example, there were many cases where these breach of security was circulating, right? And also privacy being violated lately, right? Some certain organizations, there have been buzzwords going on to that they are not safe. For example, the Sampath Bank had an issue like that some time back, right? That there are issues with regards to security, and there were corporate statements issued, right, online, saying that it's a fake news that is being circulated. Likewise, news stories can make a huge impact to this as well, right? Then the fear of the unknown, that's also there, no? Many will simply have a general fear of the technology and the new media. It's very correct, right? Which is not surprising, since much of the news about the internet will concern pornography, fraud, and privacy infringements. Now, if the internet is perceived as something bad, right, then there's a general fear that consumers have in engaging in transactions online, right? If it is being tabooed as something bad, if internet is being branded as something bad, then there is a general reluctance from the customer's end to use technology, right? And this new media, if it's something which is, by for example, in households this happen a lot, right? Parents will not allow children or the youth to get involved with this technology too much sometimes, right? Sometimes that is even one of the reasons governing the parents buying a mobile phone for their children. They don't do that because they fear that by engaging in these internet based technologies, by meddling with these new technologies and media, their children, these youth can get misled. That fear is there, right? Even in Sri Lankan households, we see that a lot, right? So that fear of the unknown leaves the customers from using this internet sometimes, but lately it has been greatly being dissolving as we see, right? But it can be a major concern, right? If you don't know what consequence it might have on you, right? If you feel like it can mislead you, if you feel like your privacy can be violated by using these services online, then if you fear that, if you have a general fear on that, you may not opt to use e-commerce based services, right? Okay, so those are the factors governing consumer adoption of e-commerce services: cost of access, value proposition, ease of use, security, fear of the unknown. Then we move on to privacy and trust in e-commerce, right?